Hello? It is I, Dexter. Can you hear me in there? Thank you for volunteering for this important time travel experiment. I'm going to need you to input your profile into the system before we begin. Stand by and I'll bring it up on your monitor.
When it comes to Cartoon Network, they sometimes can make other nostalgic properties that isn't just their cartoons. Most notably, their video games. Obviously, they're all not masterpieces, but they're usually fun and hold a special place in people's hearts. Some of their current games would even have console releases and do very well in ratings. But even though all the games they have made, there's only one game that to me stands out as the game that truly made Cartoon Network blast other games out of the water during that time. No offense to these games though. That would be the 2009 Cartoon Network MMO game, FusionFall. This was something completely unexpected from the same company that gave us amazing cartoons. But this is Cartoon Network. They make a lot of these choices, and if it fails, they remove it and pretend it didn't exist and that we don't remember anything. Ahem. But sometimes these choices end up being successful, and that's the case for FusionFall. This was a game that had an insane plot, but was very addicting from the start. It truly was one of those games that sounded crazy and obviously isn't perfect, but it was able to execute itself into something memorable and honestly, pretty awesome. However, a lot of you may not know is that this game has had an interesting history ever since its release. Trust me when I say this, it's a little surprising when you hear about what this game has gone through. It had its shutdown. It had a spin-off game. It had some revivals, which then led to some rumored drama to happen behind the scenes, which actually caused Cartoon Network themselves to take matters into their own hands. And they didn't even know a thing about it. Y'all, these are some events that all dial back to a game about you along with some familiar characters fighting an alien overlord. Who the hell thought that this innocent game would have a history like this? Well, I guess I wanted to talk about it since the game still has a small but really devoted fan base, despite being a game that many people may have forgotten about. So, we're going to be looking at what caused the upbringing and demise of one of the craziest properties Cartoon Network has ever done. Once again, it's Cartoon Network. They have never made any bad choices over the years. Oh god, that was such an awful time. Well, without further ado, let's take a look at the uprise and downfall of Cartoon Network's greatest game, FusionFall. Our story begins around the time where the game was trying to be greenlit. I'm going to assume it started around 2004 to 2005 since the game would go in full production just a year later. I could be wrong, but I couldn't find a specific date the game was thought about before it being pitched. So let's just say that it started somewhere around those 2 years. Cartoon Network's vice president at the time, Chris Waldron, wanted to make an MMO game for the network due to the popularity of other MMOs during that time. Disney's Toontown, Club Penguin, Nicktropolis, and many others. In fact, they wanted to rival Toontown since it was such a huge moneymaker for Disney. It took them 4 years trying to get the game made. They likely at first had no idea what they wanted to make. They were scrambling around different concepts to see what they would go with entirely. At one point, it was even going to be similar to Toontown via the gameplay, but decided to stick with something original than just make Toontown all over again. But didn't know anything else to add in. But then one day, one or some executives at Cartoon Network had this random idea.
Okay, so what if we turned our characters into anime and had them all fight against an alien that was taking over their world with miniature versions of themselves and special powers to stop the other aliens?
What? Let's just go with it. The game would finally be in development around April of 2006. The studio behind the entire game was a small South Korean studio called Grygon Entertainment. The directors were Levon Hakobian, I know I'm butchering this, but just bear with me, alright? And Greg Grygon, as well as the producers Cree Hass and Toe Bronson. This guy's name is Toe? No hate to this guy, but who decides to name their child Toe? Like, what? I'm sorry. I just realized that when I was writing the script for this, and I just had to talk about it. Okay, it's not funny anymore. Anyways, I'm going to presume that they weren't very well known based on what I could find about the studio. They only produced 2 games throughout their early development, and they weren't all that successful. I bet it has its fans, but it wasn't anything revolutionary. Therefore, it is likely that they were able to truly demonstrate their creative edge when they were chosen to create this Cartoon Network MMO game. They weren't exactly sure what to call the game. It was originally known as Park Project, but the name was later changed to Cartoon Network MMOG. They would ultimately decide on the name FusionFall. The game was made with Unity web player, making it accessible for everyone to play via browser, which meant that you didn't have to download any software or the game's files to play it. To somewhat hype up the soon-to-be released game and get more people invested into it, Cartoon Network released a comic book that pretty much sums up the entire story of the game. It was written by Matthew Schwartz and George Christic, who was actually one of the co-creators of Megas XLR. Seriously though, Megas XLR is such an underrated gem of a show. It's really good. I suggest you watch it, if you're into giant fighting robots and sexy female aliens.
How you doing? Kinda looks up to me.
You'll have a good time watching it. You can already tell what the game is based on from the comic book's art style and writing. The whole book is actually available online. If you want to check it out for yourself, I'll provide a link below. The game was then open for beta testing from November 2008 to January 2009. A few days later, it would officially be released, thus bringing us to the game's impactful and glorious Uprise. FusionFall would officially make its debut on January 14th, 2009. The entire premise of the game revolved around you living in the Cartoon Network universe, where various characters from different shows would interact with each other. However, an evil alien by the name of Fuse decides to destroy all the planets and sets Earth as his next target. He sends out his minions to terrorize all the environment on Earth, including the CN City. He can even create fusion versions of the characters that also invade the CN City. In order to save Earth, you along with the cast of your favorite Cartoon Network characters would team up to take on Fuse and his minions to save Earth. During this journey, you'll collect different gear, weapons, and even these little guys called nanos, which are miniature versions of the characters with special powers to help you with the bosses. You would unlock a new nano each time you get a huge amount of fusion matter from various quests you do for the majority of the game. With its fantastic and original premise, the game was putting itself out there right away. And even the commercials that ran on TV just made a lot of kids go. The game looks like something you wouldn't typically see in an MMO game targeted for kids. For a small studio that only made 2 games, they really delivered with their skills and did an amazing job. The characters, weapons, monsters, and gear, as well as the world itself, was phenomenal. I don't use that word often, but trust me, for this game, it deserves that word. I mean it. You have to give credit to the studio for a lot of creativity used for every little detail added in. Although some designs for the characters are pretty unsettling, like, ew, why is his eyes so, what am I looking at, bro? Like, who thought of this? With everything leading up to FusionFall's release, it's clear how much effort and commitment Cartoon Network put into creating this game. And it absolutely paid off. It was able to amass up to 9 million players over the course of its release. It is essentially the biggest game that Cartoon Network has ever released online, and it would only continue to grow in popularity. It had in-game events, new missions, new NPCs, and frequent updates that would only keep the game running for years to come. It even had some pretty decent reviews from a lot of well-known review sites. Like I said earlier, it has a dedicated fan base. People to this day still praise the game for how much nostalgia they have for it. It's pretty sweet actually. People enjoyed the game so much that following a tragedy with the original, we'll get to that later, a group of fans decided to recreate FusionFall, but split it into 2 separate games, simply known as FusionFall Retro and FusionFall Legacy. I'll talk more about those games later on, and as I mentioned earlier, this fan base was dedicated. So I'll let you wonder how they reacted.
Tear through bad guys in action-packed combat using a wide array of weapons including swords, rifles, and rockets. Use your new nanos to level up, take down the evil fusion doppelgangers, and win this war. The time is now. The hero is you.
But I want it now!
The fact that a group of fans were able to recreate the entire game from the ground up shows how much the game left an impact on a lot of people. FusionFall separated out from other MMOs due to its original and unique design. Although it was something unexpected and now canon, obviously, it was able to be original and not draw elements from its competitors when they were first developing the game. FusionFall would go on to entertain a lot of kids around the world and even attract a significant number of new viewers to tune in to Cartoon Network. Truly, everything was set for Cartoon Network's future because of FusionFall, and it was all going to work out perfectly. Everything was set for what was yet to come. But you already read the title, so you know what happens next. Every fall from grace, if not managed correctly, will lead to its eventual downfall. With the rise of FusionFall, at first it seemed like everything was going to go up and running for what was to come next. But sadly, everything would come to a brutal close. On August 23rd, 2013, Cartoon Network would announce that the servers for FusionFall would be shutting down for good. That day was a sad day for FusionFall fans, especially for fans that didn't even finish the game during that time, a tragedy that happened way too soon. The game didn't even last for 5 years, so it was a real shame that it ended abruptly. Yeah, like I said, they did come out with a statement that it was going to end, but given how long it has been since its release, it still comes as a surprise. Once again, it didn't last 5 years. They even made a mini event where all players were given unlimited in-game currency and increased levels on the final days leading to the game shutting down. You're probably asking yourself, why did this happen? There isn't an accurate answer to exactly why it was shut down, but from what I could find, the possible reason why the game was halted was probably due to a decline in players and zero profiting, as well as a lack of focus. I assume zero profiting because at first, the game was made with a subscription plan, which meant that you needed to pay to continue playing. This is a common trope in a lot of MMO games. They would eventually make the game completely free a year later. Remember as a kid when you begged your parents to buy you actual membership cards in Target or Walmart just to continue playing a game?
Ah, good times, good times.
Some games actually still do this method to this day. I'm talking about you, Wizard 101. Or do you actually care about your players? With the overall cancellation of FusionFall, it seemed like Cartoon Network tried to continue the FusionFall saga to make the fans happy, but they did it in a really terrible way. On March 25th, 2013, Cartoon Network would release a spin-off game based off FusionFall called FusionFall Heroes. In this, you play as a character from the previous game, such as Dexter, Gumball, Johnny Bravo, and others, rather than your avatar. You fight fusion monsters in various maps with other online players, and after each combat, you earn various costumes for the heroes. Now I won't lie, this idea sounds kinda cool. You playing as your favorite Cartoon Network characters battling different monsters with other people online sounds kinda fun. It's kind of like you're playing FusionFall all over again. This should be awesome, right? Well, guess what? The shit was a disappointment. The game itself was just a low quality click to move and attack flash game, which easily made it extremely boring to play. This was the game that Cartoon Network gave to fans after canceling their biggest game ever? That's just a slap to the face to the fan base. What the hell were they thinking?
I won it. You're trespassing on my property. You didn't win in my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
It's no surprise that everyone in the fandom can agree that FusionFall Heroes is an awful game. Even if they played it as a kid, be honest, it's garbage. This is something the fans didn't deserve at all. We could have gotten something much cooler, but instead, we got this dumpster fire.
Know your place, trash.
But years later, we would get something exciting. Something that the fanbase wanted after the shutdown. Only for all of it to come to an end as well. Which leads to the topic that I bet a lot of you want to know about. The situation behind the FusionFall revivals and their unfortunate end. Remember when I mentioned about there being 2 games that fans made years after FusionFall's shutdown? Apparently, a lot of back and forth stuff happened behind the scenes that eventually caused both projects to discontinue. I know some of it because, believe it or not, I played the first revival when it was still out. To summarize the history of these games, a small group of fans formed a team called FusionFall Universe. In December of 2016, they announced that they would be developing 2 remastered versions of FusionFall, which were soon known as FusionFall Retro and FusionFall Legacy. One of these games would eventually be launched and last for a year and a half, while the other one would never see the light of day. FusionFall Retro was just a remake of the original game, same missions, nanos, etc., with a few updated details. However, FusionFall Legacy was going to be a completely new game, with a lot more added in that wasn't in the original game. And I mean a lot of new stuff. Characters, locations, items, everything. The team even made trailers and some videos talking about what to expect from all of it. They were pretty promising, and it seemed like the team knew exactly what they were doing to give the fans what they want. Retro and Legacy appeared to have a bright future that would be worth waiting for. The fans couldn't wait to see what happens next. Well, you already know what's gonna happen next. And it was all because of one extremely petty person. Or was it? So bear with me here, this entire situation is a lot. I don't even know if some of it actually happened or not from what I read. I even talked with one of the developers of FusionFall Retro, PRZZYFIED'S, on his take of what happened. And he was kind to give me a little info on everything. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description if you would like to go check out some retro content and what they had planned. From him, there isn't really a lot to say, but from what the fans thought had happened, it still has to be mentioned. So just try to keep up with me as I try to go through everything. I'm not saying that it's all true. I'm just pointing out what I found while researching this. Please don't take what I say as the truth. This is just from what I read. The names of these people will be blurred out to respect privacy reasons. So I'm going to call this mysterious person N throughout this. Allegedly, N was a part of the FusionFall Universe team and wanted to add a feature to the game, something that involved crafting gear, which is weird because Retro already had a mechanic like that added in, where you take 2 pieces of gear and combine them together to make the gear you want with good stats. They didn't like his idea and refused to add it in. Being upset by this, he decided to spam Cartoon Network emails about the game's revival and obvious false accusations towards the team, such as money laundering and pedophilia. Cartoon Network then acted on the FusionFall Universe team with the DMCA takedown, which the team respectfully accepted. On April 16th, 2020, the team would go on Twitter to state that FusionFall Retro and Legacy would be taken down for good. N would then go on to flaunt to the team that he took down FusionFall and being proud of it, also upsetting a lot of fans. It's honestly sad because this was a small team that really took time out of their personal lives and spent 6 years making these games, just for all of it to be gone in a flash. There's nothing that can be done at this point. Cartoon Network did have every right to take down the game, because although it was a fan game, they own this game and these characters, so we shouldn't be blaming them for taking matters into their own hands. The games were already somewhat at risk of being taken down, and Cartoon Network can do whatever they want with anything they make. This would have been worse if the team didn't take the game down, which could have led to them going to court over a 14-year-old game. It could have gotten ridiculous, but it all doesn't end there. A Reddit user from the FusionFall subreddit commented on the topic, saying that he knows N and that he isn't as horrible as he portrayed himself out to be to everyone, which I personally doubt. But what makes all this strange is that according to him, N wasn't the main reason why Retro and Legacy was taken down in the first place. This was soon followed up by Warner Media making a statement about the whole situation, saying that the FusionFall Universe team had no permission from them at all to make the game, which is strange because the team has been saying for years that they were given permission from Cartoon Network to recreate it. Then another user made a post on the subreddit saying that some of the developers who helped make the original FusionFall game gave the team permission to recreate it and not Cartoon Network themselves, which could explain why Cartoon Network filed a DMCA against the FusionFall Universe team, as they likely had no idea the game was being recreated for 5 years and just learned about it through emails from N, believing that what he's saying is true when it's clearly false. So could the FusionFall Universe team be lying about getting permission? Did Cartoon Network really not know about this happening? Did N really send those false emails? This is a very complicated situation that questions a lot of things. It kinda makes it hard for who to believe in all of this. I already know there are some videos of the devs and fans talking about everything. I recommend you guys go watch those videos if you'd like to know more. I'll even leave a few in the description. To try and sum everything up, 2 unofficial FusionFall games were made with no permission from Cartoon Network. One of the team members got their idea for the game rejected. That member would email Cartoon Network false accusations. Cartoon Network would send a DMCA to the team. The team would respectfully take the game down and discontinue development. Both FusionFall Universe and Warner Brothers would make statements from what happened, only for more info to come towards FusionFall Universe about permission rights. So after all of this, I just have one question to ask. What happens now? After the DMCA takedown of Retro and Legacy, it seemed at this point that FusionFall was pretty much dead. Nothing can be done to bring the game back after every attempt. Every time a new game came out, Cartoon Network would come out of nowhere to shut it down, as they should. Well, as of right now, there's an unofficial server called Open Fusion, which allows you to play the entire game, but with added cheats. It also allows people to create their own private servers or join in on the public servers. It's the only way to play FusionFall right now in its entirety. This wasn't exciting news, but we're at least happy the game isn't completely dead. Not surprisingly, there were already a few revival projects from fans, which means they genuinely don't want this game dead and will do anything to keep it alive. Some of these projects would cease production, while other projects were just the same game but with added mods or new separate updates. One was even a server in Minecraft. I told y'all, this fanbase is dedicated. But one project turned out to be the exact opposite of what it originally was. Instead of it being a revival, it was a new game. There was an announcement that FusionFall would be coming back, but as a new and original game instead of the old game made by fans. They were originally going to call it FusionFall Worlds Collide, which was the title for the comic book when the original game was first launched. But keeping the FusionFall name attached would almost certainly raise the chance of copyright infringement, just to get taken down like the previous fan games. Plus, it's supposed to be an entirely new game. So it was smart to change the name into something original and stick to its own idea. They decided to rebrand the game as this.
Saturday morning.
Invasion.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm!
It had its own teasers and a full trailer showing everything that's being worked on, and holy hell, everything looks so colorful. Along with updated models, new features, new characters, and a lot more. This project is also something this group is doing to evolve their work ethic into future video game careers, which I think is pretty cool. Obviously, this isn't the final game and doesn't have a release date yet. That means we need to wait and see what will change and what more will soon come. I will like to say this though. I'm personally excited for this to arrive, but I don't know how long it's going to last. With what happened with the previous games, it's more likely this game will get taken down if things aren't handled correctly. Since this game is original and was inspired by an existing property, I want to see it grow, but Cartoon Network might say otherwise and get it shut down, which is possible now. Guess we'll have to find out and see how this game thrives itself, for better or for worse. FusionFall was a game that holds a place in a lot of people's hearts to this day. It was something fun and creative that was never seen before back in the days when MMOs were everywhere. This game showed that you, or a group of people, or even a company, can make something amazing if you stick with original ideas with one another. FusionFall was one of those ideas for Cartoon Network, and it did a bundle for them for 4.5 years. It showed a gaming studio this small could make something that was unexpected at the time. There's probably a lot of kids that were introduced to Cartoon Network and its cartoons because of FusionFall. This game really had a lot to give and left an impact on a lot of people that grew up with it, and to this day still have a great fan base. But we soon realize, good things don't last forever. FusionFall had a good run for a while, but now we need to accept the change and see what's ahead for the future. Cartoon Network intended to move away from its old ideas and towards something more modern, which meant canceling or closing their former properties as years went by. It's their choice if they want to continue a property or cancel it and move on. Maybe in the future we can get a FusionFall revival game from them. Anything can happen. Maybe these new fan games can be a step up to something new, and if any of these fan games succeed, I can't wait to see what they will bring. Although it may be gone for good, we all as fans can still remember great and fond memories playing Cartoon Network's greatest and biggest game ever, FusionFall. Hope you guys enjoyed this Uprise and Downfall. Let me know what other nostalgic games I should talk about, whether it's for a nostalgic property or if it has some drama-filled history. I love to see what you guys suggest. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love.